The American people are in a stupor. Look at every face you pass on the street in the cities. Most of them look blank. One test of everyone, how distantly do they seem to be aware? 10 feet, 100 feet, a mile, 1,000 miles, 12 inches, 3 inches, 25,000 miles, 6 million light years? How aware are strangers on the street of police brutality, of beating someone half to death, then charging them with assaulting an officer that will put them in prison for 15 years? Then watch your city council. Ask them nicely if they're doing a good job. And would they like to use just a dab of pepper spray once in a while, but only on incorrigibles, you know. No serious big-time use. We want to be thoughtful about this, you know. Oh, no, we wouldn't do that. Trust us. How much do people know of working conditions for Nike in Indonesia at $2.26 a day? How come they don't know, your fellow folks here in America? Isn't that news? Maybe the press doesn't want to shed light on it. And after all, Nike advertises in their paper, okay? What do you expect them to do? How the CIA orchestrated the murder of 750,000 there in 1965 when Sukarno was overthrown and Suharto took over at the U.S. behest, to eliminate all the people-oriented socialists and radicals and whatever that wanted to see a decent life in a decent world, not controlled by someone elsewhere, but were in the way of American capital investment, buying up land, mineral deposits, oil lands, bribes, and brute force with the local government. Sure, Vietnam is a long way ago now, but what did they realize either then or later as the hideous stories began to come out as to what we did there? The destruction of 2 million people, of how many wild animals in the jungles under our carpet bombing. The greatest high altitude bombing by any nation in history, even more than World War II. And the American pilots would laugh and talk crazy over beer back at the base after a raid. Good, upstanding American young men. Yeah. Good, upstanding killers. American young men, your sons, your brothers, yes, Americans. You American young men flying high altitude B-52 super bombers, bigger than anything in World War II, with gigantic bomb loads to be dropped on villages in the beautiful jungles inhabited by quiet little people dressed in black pajamas. Tell me, please, what did they ever do to us? And furthermore, it turns out our Gulf of Tonkin grievance about 2 North Vietnamese gunboats attacking 2 American destroyers turned out to be a gigantic lie. And we had never even heard of much of any of this. But because of the Chinese Revolution of 1949, the Chinese Revolution of 1949, we had to, had to get a foothold on the continent of Asia, right? Damn right, okay? Okay. But in the meantime, because we've been and still are in such a giant stupor about almost all aspects of our free enterprise Christian lives, we never knew a word of this unless we just maybe read an article or two in some pinko publication. Meanwhile, middle-aged guys home from work back in the US of A would be busy with potato chips in front of their ridiculous programs on TV, or watching the richest football teams win the Super Bowl, and college football with players who major in right tackle or cornerback and push-ups and pumping iron. They live in a grotesque country that became what it is by way of several wars, beginning with the French and Indian Wars, with 120 million Indians dead before it was over, and how many million buffalo that was their food and could have fed whatever Indians were left, that will never be known. Then we whipped Mexico's ass so we could get the Southwest with the U.S. Army in Mexico City in 1848. Yes, Mexico City, California, then was in Mexico, speaking a beautiful Spanish language. Then the Spanish-American War, and we get Puerto Rico, Cuba, and the Philippines. Wars, wars, wars. Then gangsters, police corruption, business crimes at every level, free enterprise at its best. So our documents and scholars repeated to us, but always when a lot of money at stake, any crime is worth trying. This is not to say we're not a good people. We're not. We are a good people. It's just that we're pathetic because we never know a thing about power. It's exercise, it's control, it's ownership. If we listen to the newspapers, we never heard of it. We're all one sweet, functioning, huge gob of humanity. Beautiful and sweet and hideous and murderous and greedy and crooked when we can be. Okay? We all think we live in a nice land where there are churches and lawns and swimming pools and pretty girls at school and nice-looking muscular boys and football uniforms that makes them look like astronauts. And we didn't let women vote in federal elections until the year I was born, 1920. Can you believe it? My God, my God, my God. And we don't have the foggiest idea what it was like to be a slave on a plantation in the South without a paycheck for 300 years, or through the Depression of the 30s or the phony, meaningless decade of the 20s. Hey, we got a lot to cope with here. Let's talk about Americans whose radius of concern is 20 feet, except when they're on the freeway and some piece of crap is holding up the parade at 65 miles an hour while you're trying to get to your second job at 85 an hour in your bright blue 40,000 Honda Leviticus. Then your radius of concern is up to the gap. You can dart in and out a quarter of a mile ahead between those two trucks. It don't scare you. So for a few seconds, your radius is a quarter of a mile. Back to the 20 feet. It's your desk at work, and the boss's office, and the John and the water cooler where you can try to catch Cindy again. Wow, where your folks are working on investments for other people. And if you do things right, you can make access to $4,000 by Friday in commissions. Yeah. You know absolutely nothing about anything outside the borders of this country, and nothing whatever anywhere, even in your own neighborhood, in your own house, or before you were born. You're an ignoramus, yet you're cocky as hell, and talk and laugh loud with some of the other guys that were on the high school football team that you see over beer at Spats on Friday once in a while. Your situation won't hit you till you've had your first heart attack at 61, and you've been divorced for 13 years, and the kids never look you up and check you out. And what you don't notice is that you don't call them either. You're pathetic, and probably will be until the day you groan and turn over in your bed to your right, where your lungs don't hurt as much, and then you'll stop breathing. Then, maybe 6 times in the next 2 months, someone will ask someone else about you. Have they heard from you? The way we all talk all the time, just for some reason other than content. Let's look at the folks whose perimeter is a mile. What's within a mile? The local downtown area, the mall, on the east edge of town, a newspaper shop with papers from all over the place, including some foreign languages, and you went there once long ago. The Republican local headquarters is in that mile, and you've helped out there to get the government out of business more, because privatization is the name of the game. Right? Right? Hey, right? December 1997.